Not a single one of them showed up. That was the only thought I had as I stood behind a table in a quiet local bookstore, holding the very first printed copy of my debut novel. I was alone. The folding chair next to me sat empty. The stack of books in front of me remained untouched. My signing pen hadn't moved. This was supposed to be a celebration, the moment my dream finally came true. But instead it felt like a very public reminder that I didn't matter. It wasn't that the event hadn't been promoted. I had arranged everything myself. Bookstore, reserved, local paper, covered the story, invites, sent personally to each of my family members. All 7 of them. I wasn't asking for a stadium full of cheering fans, just my 2 children, their spouses, and my 3 grandchildren. That's it. Those were the only faces I wanted to see. But they never came. Not one of them. Let me back up a little. My name is Helen Roberts. I'm 63 years old, recently retired after teaching high school English in the small town of Mapleton, Illinois for 36 years. My husband, Richard, left me when our kids were still young. Aaron was 11, Emily only 8. I raised them alone, paid for their degrees, helped them buy their homes, watched their kids every time they needed a sitter. I was always there, always dependable, always second to whatever they had going on. But this book, this was supposed to be my thing. After I retired, I finally had time to write the story I'd been carrying in my heart since I was 25. I wasn't looking to win awards. It was just a simple novel about a woman who, after a life of doing everything for everyone else, finally chooses herself. A story I knew too well. The launch was set for Saturday at 2 p.m. at Miller's Books, a cozy little place downtown that had kindly offered to host the event. I picked the time carefully, late enough for people to sleep in, early enough for them to come and still have the evening free. I even arranged cookies and coffee for the guests. Friday night, Megan, my daughter-in-law, called me. "Hey Helen, I'm really sorry, but we can't make it tomorrow. My mom planned this full-day spa trip for the whole family. She's been talking about it for months. I thought it was next weekend. I feel awful." I was quiet for a moment. "It's my book launch, Megan. I've been working toward this day for 3 years. I know, and we're proud of you. But it's just bad timing. You know how important these family days are." Family days. Aaron came on the line next. "Mom, we'll order a few copies and support you that way. It's just, Beverly already booked everything. The girls are really looking forward to it. We'll celebrate another day." That word again, another day. That night Emily called. "Mom, I just talked to Aaron. I was going to come, but honestly, if none of them are going, I think it would feel awkward. I don't want it to be weird. It's not supposed to be about them. It's about me." She sighed. "I know, but we'll do something soon. Promise." Saturday came. Gray clouds rolled in. It matched my mood perfectly. I wore my best navy suit, the one I had worn to Emily's wedding. I took extra time with my hair and makeup. I told myself I'd walk in with pride no matter what. Miller's Books had done their part. A table up front, a neat little sign. "Meet local author Helen Roberts, Saturday 2 to 4 p.m. A modest display of 20 books was set up beside me. There were even 2 small bouquets. At 2:10 p.m. the only person who approached the table was a man who asked where the restroom was. At 2:35, a college student asked if there were any free bookmarks. At 3:10, a woman bought a copy because she liked the cover. She didn't even ask what the book was about. By 4 o'clock, I had sold 3 copies. One to the bookstore owner. One to a friend I hadn't seen in years. One to a stranger. That's it. I drove home with a box full of unsold books and a heart full of something I couldn't quite name yet. Not anger, not sadness, but something heavier. Something final. Back at the house, I poured a glass of wine. The good kind. The one I'd saved for a special occasion. Apparently, that wasn't going to happen. As I sat at the kitchen table, the silence pressed in. And that's when I noticed something. All around the house were signs of what I'd given. Framed photos of Aaron's graduation. Emily's wedding. Every grandchild's birthday party. Photos where I stood just slightly off to the side. Present but never central. Always behind the lens. Always behind the scene. I picked up a notepad and pen. At first I didn't know what I was doing. I just started writing things down. Numbers. Dates. Years. Aaron's college tuition, $38,000. Emily's tuition, $42,000. Aaron's house down payment, $21,000. Emily's condo, $19,000. Babysitting over the last 10 years, 500 hours per year free. Emergency loans never repaid, $11,000 plus. I stared at the total. I had given them nearly $170,000 of support, not counting groceries, gifts, time, care. And all I'd asked for was one afternoon. I reached for my phone and opened a photo app. Megan had posted pictures from the spa day. My granddaughters in robes sipping lemonade. The caption read, "Best Saturday ever with our favorite grandma. #Pamper Day." Not only grandma, favorite. The message was clear. They had chosen. And so would I. That night I didn't sleep. But for the first time in years I felt wide awake. Sunday morning arrived clear and cool. The kind of day that usually calls for a long walk or a good book. But I had neither in mind. I made myself breakfast, something more than toast for once, and brewed a fresh pot of coffee. I sat down with my notepad from the night before, took a deep breath and began making calls. The first was to Stephen Calloway, my lawyer of 20 years. "Stephen, it's Helen Roberts. I need to update my will. Tomorrow if you have time." He paused. "Of course, Helen. Is everything all right?" "It will be," I said. "I'm just reorganizing my priorities." The second call was to Mapleton Bank's Trust Department. I'd like to schedule an appointment to set up 3 educational trusts for my grandchildren. The woman on the other end of the line sounded delighted. "That's a wonderful idea. When would you like to come in?" "Tomorrow morning if possible." By the time I hung up, I had 3 meetings set for Monday 9 a.m. with Stephen 11:30 a.m. at the bank and 2 p.m. with my financial planner. I spent the rest of Sunday preparing, sorting documents, printing out statements, reviewing every contribution I had made over the years. I kept thinking about the phrase Megan had used, family day, and how strange it was that I had never seemed to be included in those. Around 5:30 p.m. my phone buzzed. A text from Aaron. "How did the book signing go?" I stared at the screen for a full minute before replying. It was clarifying. He responded instantly. "That good, huh?" Smiley face. I learned exactly where I stand. No reply after that. I locked the phone and set it face down. I should have felt sad. But I didn't. I felt something firmer, cleaner. Like finally stepping out from under a heavy coat I didn't know I'd been wearing. That evening I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my younger sister Joyce, who'd moved to Oregon ages ago and had spent the past decade inviting me out there. "Joyce," I said, "how's the guest room situation at your place?" She laughed. "Is this finally it? Are you coming?" "I think I might be. I'm making some changes." "Oh, Helen. It's about time." We talked for 2 hours. Caught up on everything. She listened to the whole story, the missed book signing, the spa photos, the years of giving and being left behind. She didn't interrupt once. When I was done, she just said, "I've got a bottle of wine with your name on it. Whenever you're ready." The next morning, I dressed with intention. Black slacks, white blouse, comfortable but confident. The kind of outfit I used to wear on the first day of school. I gathered my documents, clipped them neatly in folders and headed out. Stephen's office hadn't changed much. Same framed diplomas, same scent of lemon polish. He greeted me like always. Warm, kind, and a little concerned. "I assume this isn't a minor update." "No, Stephen. I'm rewriting everything." He opened his notebook. "All right. What are we keeping?" "Very little." I laid out the plan. My current will split everything evenly between Aaron and Emily, house, savings, investments, all of it. That was about to change. "I want to create 3 educational trusts," I said. "One for each grandchild, $75,000 each. Tuition only. With conditions." Stephen raised an eyebrow. "What kind of conditions?" "They need to maintain a relationship with me. Real relationship. Phone calls, visits, letters. If they don't, the money gets redirected." "To whom?" "To Mapleton Literacy Project." Or whichever local charity supports reading programs when the time comes. Stephen scribbled furiously. And your children? $10,000 each. No more. He looked up. Helen. That's a significant reduction. Are you sure? I'm not angry, I said. I'm just done rewarding distance. They've chosen how they treat me. I'm simply responding accordingly. We spent an hour drafting the new will. Then I headed to the bank. Patricia, the trust officer, was professional and curious. She'd seen cases like mine before. More than I expected. Grandparents setting boundaries. Families growing apart. When I explained the conditions I wanted for the trust, she didn't blink. It's becoming more common, she said. You're not punishing them. You're setting expectations for respect. Exactly. I left the bank with 3 trust documents in process and a deep sense of calm. My final appointment that day was with Roger Blanchard, my financial advisor. We'd been working together since Richard left. He had helped me rebuild everything. When I explained that I wanted to begin gifting parts of my estate to Joyce, within the legal annual limits, he blinked twice, then asked, "Is this because of the book launch?" "No," I said. "It's because of 20 years of maybe next time." Joyce has always been there. She remembers my birthday. She calls me every week. I want to give while I'm still here to enjoy the giving. By the end of the day, the pieces were in motion. Trusts being formed. Wills updated. Transfers planned. Tuesday morning I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest. Not dread, not regret. It was something quieter. Peaceful. Like I'd finally stopped running towards something that was never going to meet me halfway. I didn't rush through the morning like I usually did. I brewed my coffee slowly, sat by the window and actually finished the newspaper for once. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt mine. Around 8:30 the phone rang. The screen lit up with Emily's name. "Hey Mom," she said, sounding too cheerful. "Megan mentioned you seemed a little off after the spa weekend. Everything okay?" I let the silence stretch for a second longer than polite. "I'm fine," I said. "Just making some overdue changes." There was a pause. "Oh, well, we were thinking of doing a little get-together next weekend. Make up for missing your book thing. Would love for you to come." Book thing? I almost laughed. But I didn't. "Thanks, Emily. I'll let you know." She didn't know I'd be on a plane by then. And she didn't know about the will. Or the trusts. Or the fact that I wasn't interested in making up for anything. That afternoon I called Joyce again. "You still up for a visitor?" I asked. I already fluffed the pillows. I booked a flight. Friday morning. I need a few days of clean air and clarity. "Well, I've got both and a porch swing waiting." I could hear the smile in her voice. That night I packed a small suitcase. Just the essentials. A few books. A folder of papers. A copy of my novel. I looked around the bedroom I'd lived in for 30 years and realized I wasn't leaving. I was choosing to go. Wednesday passed quietly. I spent most of the day preparing the house. Watered the plants. Wrote down notes for the neighbor who'd be checking the mail. And then on a whim I took out the family photo albums. I hadn't touched them in years. There we were, Aaron as a toddler in a dinosaur costume. Emily in her first recital dress. Vacations, birthdays, Christmas mornings. Photo after photo of me behind the cake, behind the camera, behind the effort. Always there. Always supportive. Rarely central. One photo stopped me. It was from Aaron's wedding. He and Megan in the center, all smiles. Her parents on one side, arms linked, glowing. I was on the other side, alone. A step back. Cut off slightly by the edge of the frame. A perfect metaphor. Thursday evening, just before dinner, I got another call, this time from Aaron. "Hey Mom. Emily said you sounded weird on the phone. Everything all right?" "I'm better than I've been in years." "That's good." "I think so." He hesitated. "We've been talking, and Megan feels terrible about missing the book thing. We want to come over next week. Make it up to you. Let's talk when I'm back." "Back?" "I'm heading to Oregon for a bit. Spending time with Joyce." A pause. "Is this about the book launch?" "No, Aaron. This is about everything that came before it." He didn't have a response to that. "I'll call when I'm back," I said. "Take care." I ended the call before he could say more, because for once I didn't want to hear an excuse. I'd heard enough of those to last a lifetime. Friday morning I stepped onto a plane with one carry-on and a heart that felt oddly light. I hadn't traveled in years. But I wasn't nervous. I was free. Joyce greeted me at the small regional airport with a hug that nearly knocked the air out of me. "You look 10 years younger already," she said. I left a few weights behind. We spent the weekend talking on the porch, walking through her neighborhood, cooking meals that didn't involve microwaves. I read in the afternoons, slept deeply, smiled more than I had in months. On Sunday we sat by a lake near her home. I showed her my updated documents, the will, the trust clauses, the letters I'd written to each grandchild, stored safely in a sealed envelope for later. Joyce read them all slowly, then looked up at me. "You're not just cleaning house," she said. "You're planting new roots." "Exactly." She smiled. "And what are you going to do with all that time now that you're not carrying everyone else's weight?" "Live." And I meant it. Monday morning, I got an email from Patricia at the bank. The educational trusts were fully established. The paperwork had been finalized. Everything was official. Later that day, I got a message from Stephen. "Documents filed. The new will is legal and binding." That evening, Joyce and I toasted with a small glass of white wine. "To new chapters," she said. "To making sure we write them ourselves," I added. I didn't feel vindictive. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. Like I'd finally stepped into my own life instead of watching it from the edge of someone else's spotlight. Back in Mapleton, they would eventually notice the shift. But not yet. First, I was going to enjoy this peace. I returned home from Oregon late Wednesday night. The town was quiet. My porch light still worked, the plants hadn't wilted, and the air in the house was crisp, like it had been holding its breath while I was gone. I set down my bags, poured a glass of water, and stood in the living room staring at the shelf where I had placed the remaining copies of New Roots. I didn't feel disappointed anymore. I felt resolved. The next morning, I began preparing the final step. Over breakfast, I wrote 3 personal letters, one to each grandchild. They were short, gentle, but clear. To Lily, I wrote about the stories I used to read her when she was little. I reminded her of the garden she used to help me water. I explained that I had started something for her future, something she could access fully if she chose to stay in touch. I included no demands. Just the truth. I told her I wanted to know her. Not through photos on social media, but through real conversations. To Mason, I wrote about the day I picked him up early from school and we ate lunch on a park bench. I told him I remembered how he held my hand tightly when he was afraid to cross streets. I asked him if he remembered that too. I said I hoped we'd talk soon, but that if we didn't, I'd still love him from afar. To Sophie, I mentioned her love for drawing, and how I still had that sketch she gave me when she was 5. I told her I had faith in her talent, and that I hoped she'd share her journey with me over the years, through letters, calls, or even a visit. If not, that was her choice. But I wanted her to know the door would always be open. I didn't send them yet. That would come later. Instead, I spent the rest of the day organizing everything. My documents were all in order. Copies made. Passwords listed. Everything labeled and placed into a fireproof lockbox, which I stored in the hall closet. By evening I was exhausted, but it wasn't the kind of tired that drags you down. It was the kind that lets you rest easy. The phone rang at 6:15 p.m. Aaron again. "Hey Mom. Just checking in. You've been kind of hard to reach." "I was out of town." "I figured. Emily said you mentioned Oregon?" "I visited Joyce." "Oh, how was that?" "Peaceful." He laughed nervously. "Well, I'm glad. Look, we were serious about wanting to come by this weekend." "I'm not available." Another pause. "You all right?" "I've never been more all right." He didn't know what to say to that. "I'll call you when I have time, Aaron." "Okay. Sure. Just yeah. Let us know." I hung up gently. Not out of spite. Just necessity. Friday morning, I walked down to Miller's Books. I hadn't seen the owner, Rachel, since the signing. She smiled when she saw me. "Helen, back from your retreat?" "You could call it that," I said. She pulled out a fresh copy of New Roots from a back shelf. "We actually had someone come in asking for this yesterday. Teacher, I think. Said they heard good things. Would you like to do another event? I paused. Not yet. But maybe soon. We chatted for a few minutes before I left. On the walk home I realized something odd. I wasn't thinking about Aaron or Emily or their missed calls. I was thinking about what kind of event I'd host next, and how I might want to invite different people this time, the kind who show up. That night, I sat down and finished the second manuscript I'd started back in Oregon. The one I hadn't told anyone about yet. I typed the final sentence just after midnight, leaned back in my chair and smiled. Saturday morning came with a surprise. An envelope slid through the front door. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. Helen, I'm sorry we missed your event. Truly. I've thought about it every day since. I'm not good at words, but I hope we can talk soon. I miss your stories. I miss your house. Mostly I think I just miss you. Lily. The handwriting was unmistakable. Still a little shaky, but hers. I held the letter in my hands for a long time. Not all bridges had burned. Some were just waiting to be walked again. The next week began with a message. Not from Aaron. Not from Emily. From Megan. Hi Helen. We've been hearing things. About the trust changes. Did something happen? Can we talk? I stared at the message for a while. There was no warmth in it, just caution. A soft attempt at damage control. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her. I simply didn't owe her an explanation. By Wednesday, Aaron called again. I let it go to voicemail. Hey Mom. Not sure if you're getting our messages. Megan said she heard something strange from someone at the bank. Are you okay? Can you give us a call? Just whenever. He sounded like he was trying to stay calm, trying not to panic. But I could hear the urgency. I didn't return the call. Instead, I spent the day at the community center, where I'd recently volunteered to help with an adult literacy program. 3 students had signed up for my writing workshop, and 2 more asked to join by the end of the day. That evening, I reread Lily's letter. Then I wrote her one in return. Dear Lily, thank you for your note. It meant more than you could know. I missed you too. If you ever want to talk, really talk, the phone is always on and the tea is always hot. Love, Grandma Helen. I sealed it and mailed it the next morning. No conditions. No expectations. Just an open hand. Thursday evening, Emily showed up. Unannounced. I was pruning the front bushes when her car pulled into the driveway. She stepped out slowly holding something. A bag with a pastry box inside. Hi, Mom. Emily. She glanced around, unsure whether to come closer. Can I come in for a minute? I stood, wiped my hands, and nodded once. Inside, she placed the pastry box on the counter and followed me to the living room. I brought lemon tarts, she said. Your favorite. I haven't had those in years. Well, I remembered. We sat in silence for a while. I heard about the changes, she finally said. The trusts. The will. I assumed you would. Can we talk about it? You can talk. I'm listening. Her face tightened. Are you angry with us? No. I'm not angry. Then why? Because it's time I stopped rewarding people for ignoring me. Emily opened her mouth, then shut it. Her fingers twisted the edge of the napkin she'd brought. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. Over and over. She nodded, eyes glassy. I know we've drifted. I know we weren't there. And I know I don't have a great excuse. No, I said softly. You don't. But I want to try. If you'll let me. I looked at her for a long time. You don't need to try because of the money, Emily. I'm not. You need to try because I'm still your mother. And I'm still here. For now. The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was honest. She nodded slowly. I'll call next week. That's okay. It is. As she left, she paused at the door. I'm sorry about the book launch. Truly. I know. She drove away without asking about the inheritance. Without pushing for reassurance. That mattered. The next day I sent the second letter. To Mason. It was shorter than Lily's. More reserved. But it was still an invitation. 2 days later I received an email. Grandma. Thanks for writing. I didn't know how to reach out. I've been thinking about you a lot lately. I'd like to come visit, just me. That's all right. Mason. I replied immediately. Of course it's all right. The doors open. Sunday morning, Mason showed up with a small bag of groceries. Bread, cheese, apples, and a little jar of strawberry jam. I didn't know what you needed, he said. I smiled. I needed exactly this. We made sandwiches, sat on the porch, and talked for 2 hours. About school. Music. Nothing in particular. Everything that mattered. As he left, he hugged me tightly. I'm sorry we forgot how to see you, he said. You remembered now. He nodded. I watched his car disappear down the street and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: connection. Not obligation. Not performance. Real love. By the following week, word had clearly spread. Aaron called again, twice in one day. I still didn't answer. Then came a letter. Not a message. Not an email. A real letter, handwritten in Aaron's careful block print. The same style he used when he was 10 years old and trying hard to make his writing look grown up. Mom, I don't know how to start this except to say, I'm sorry. Sorry for missing the most important day of your life. Sorry for not showing up when it mattered. Sorry for letting comfort take priority over respect. I don't expect forgiveness right away. I know trust takes time to rebuild. But I want to try. Not because of money. Not because of documents. Because you're still my mother. And I miss you. Aaron. I set the letter down and let out a long breath. For the first time in a long time, I believed him. I didn't reply right away. I didn't need to. I had already said what I needed to say through action. That Sunday, I mailed the final letter. To Sophie. It was simple. Dear Sophie, I've missed you. I hope we can talk soon. If not, I understand. But I'll always be here if you decide you want a real relationship. One built on something deeper than visits for holidays. Love, Grandma. 3 days later, she sent me a drawing. A watercolor of my house, surrounded by trees and birds. On the back, in curly letters, she wrote, Grandma's house is where I remember who I am. I cried. Not because I was sad, but because that one sentence did more to repair what had been broken than 1,000 apologies ever could. By the end of the month, I had seen all 3 grandchildren separately. No group effort. No awkward let's all go together to keep it quick. Each of them came on their own. Spent real time. Asked real questions. I cooked with Lily. Walked the trail with Mason. Looked at sketchbooks with Sophie. They didn't ask about the trusts. They didn't bring up money. They just showed up. And I did too. Meanwhile, Aaron and Emily kept their distance. They called occasionally but never asked about what had changed. I think they knew. I think part of them was hoping I would soften. But I didn't. Because this wasn't about teaching them a lesson. This was about honoring the lesson I had learned. That showing up once doesn't erase years of absence. That connection must be chosen, not inherited. That love, like trust, must be earned and protected. A few months later, I published a second book. A collection of short stories based on conversations I'd had with people at the community center. It wasn't a bestseller. But it was mine. My story. My voice. My name. Joyce flew in for the launch. We laughed, sipped lemonade, and watched as strangers browsed the book table. I sold 19 copies. One woman asked for a photo. Another told me her own mother had been forgotten in her final years, and how reading my first book had changed how she looked at her. Aaron didn't come. Emily didn't send flowers. But Lily did. She brought daisies, my favorite. And she stayed the entire event, smiling every time someone complimented the display. Sophie mailed me a card. I'm proud to have your last name, it said. Mason sent a short message. I told my professor about you. He bought the book. That was all I needed. Back at home, I sat on the porch as the sun dipped behind the trees. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who stayed quiet, stayed available, stayed loyal long after the appreciation was gone. That woman had loved hard. She had given more than she received. But she had also built something real. And in the end, she didn't stay invisible. She stood up. She made decisions. She turned her silence into strength. My story didn't end with a betrayal. It didn't end with a will or a bank account or a final speech. It ended with peace. The kind of peace that only comes when you finally stop begging to be included, and instead begin writing your own name into the center of your story. The kind of peace that says, you may have missed my moment, but I didn't miss my life.